Today we're going to be diving into a new sport, pun intended, and my guest is a freshman from the University of Texas who has his eyes on the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. You're not going to want to miss this episode of The Game Time Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time! Woo!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome out to another episode of the Game Time Guru podcast. Today, I am joined by a very high-profile diver. Yes, that's right, a diver. Yeah, we're talking about diving into the water, one of those sports that you probably don't hear too much about, but you're going to want to listen to this one. Take note, because I've got Jordan Windle on the phone with me today, talking about his life coming up, how he got into diving, and what he intends to do going forward. You're going to want to keep an eye on this guy. So, Jordan, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure, man. And it's kind of cool how Jordan and I cross paths. This podcasting thing is kind of a cool business because if you guys remember a couple months back, I had Scott Johnson talking about esports with me on the podcast. Well, randomly, Scott hit me up a couple weeks ago, told me about Jordan. Apparently, he had met him through some connections with the family. And one thing led to another. I got Jordan on the podcast. I'm stoked for this, and you guys are going to love it. So, Jordan, let's start off with this real quick. You're not originally from the United States, are you?
No, I'm not.
Where are you from? Can you give us a little bit of a background of how you even got here?
Yeah, for sure. So originally I'm from Cambodia. I'm adopted. I was adopted at 18 months here, and I was adopted by a gay single man, which, you know, doesn't really happen often, and not many orphanages allow that. So I was really lucky to have my dad give me this opportunity and adopt me and give me a better life outside of the orphanage. And then from there, we just moved back to the U.S. and started living in California, and that's kind of where my life started with him.
Oh, that's so awesome. So you kind of grew up in California. What led? So you got your dad, who you mentioned is a single gay man. Did that have any kind of did that bring any difficulties to your life when you were growing up or anything like that? Because, you know, like obviously the United States as we know it now, we're starting to adapt to that kind of a culture, right? But at the time, I'm sure, you know, 10, 15 years ago, it may not have been that way. Was there any difficulties or struggles you had to go through growing up with that situation?
Yeah, a little bit when I was younger. I got asked a few questions like why I'm a different color than my dad. And, you know, why aren't we anyway similar? And, you know, I didn't really have an answer, and not to mention of the age I was. And with the kids asking me these questions, they didn't understand either. I'm sure their parents didn't really talk to them about gay parents and how all that worked at that age. So, you know, it was difficult for me to understand, and I couldn't give anyone a straight answer. Until I grew up, and, you know, I'm very thankful for the life I have and the family I have as well, and I really wouldn't change it for the world, because a parent is a parent, whether you have two dads, two moms, or a mom and a dad, and, you know, it really doesn't change that love is love.
I love that, man. That's so cool, and I hope that we can all learn something from that. So it doesn't change the fact that a parent is a parent, and I'm glad that you said that, because for someone like yourself to be able to, like, that's just how life was for you, and it's cool to see that where you're at now. So we're gonna kind of get to that. So you're hanging out with your dad. How did you become? I want you to tell the story of like how you became interested in diving. Wasn't it like a bike ride or something like that?
Yeah. So the way I got into diving was I was all done with school, and it was summer, and my dad needed to get me into a summer camp. So then, you know, he ended up trying to sign me up really late, and none of the summer camps accepted me because I tried to get into a soccer one, and they said I couldn't get in. So, but then one day, my dad and I were riding on this like two-seated bike on the beach, just riding out for fun, just to do something. And we ride past the Aquatic Center, the Hall of Fame in Fort Lauderdale. And this is when I was probably 7 years old. And my dad was just telling me that we might as well walk in and see what's going on. And I was fine with whatever he wanted. So we went in, and right when we walked in, we saw all these little kids jumping off the towers and the springboards, just having a blast. And he decided to take the chance of just asking them to see if I could get into the camp, and they said that I could. And funny thing is, it wasn't actually a diving camp per se. It was an aquatics fun camp, so really it wasn't based off of diving. But yeah, and then from there, I got into the camp, started having fun like all the other kids, and the head coach, Tim O'Brien, noticed me and went up to my dad and started telling him that, I have a natural talent for diving, which, my dad just thought he was just trying to, get us to join the team so that he can get money out of it. But then Tim showed my dad some, attributes that I had that divers should have, which if I raise my arms above my head, I'm able to get them behind my ears, so I have naturally flexible shoulders. When I'm raised off the ground, if someone were to pick me up by my hips, I'll point my toes. That was just it was just a habit. I just wanted to point my toes. And from there, that kind of convinced my dad to give me a chance in the sport. And, at 7 years old, that's kind of where my diving life began.
Man, 7 years old. That is awesome. Now, did you ever, when you started at 7 years old, you started getting into this, did you ever want to participate in other more, I guess we could say, quote unquote, traditional sports such as, baseball, football, soccer, basketball, those kinds of sports? Did you ever try to compete in those? Or when you saw this at 7 years old, the diving aspect, did you go all in on diving?
So at around that age, around 7 or 9 years old, I wasn't really super into it at the time. I actually did play baseball because I started getting burnout from the sport even at that age. I was just, for some reason, I wasn't having as much fun as I thought I was. So I talked to my dad about it, and he's very accepting and very supportive of my decisions, even for how young I was. So he put me in baseball to get a different aspect of sports and stuff for me to have fun. So I played that for a while, and then I just ended up missing diving. And, knowing that I didn't love it that much, I missed it. So then I talked to my dad again and got me back into it. And then from there, people started to notice my diving and started coming up to me and talk to me about my future, and that I could have a huge future in this sport if I really focus and, have some fun and try to give it all I have. And, with my dad behind my back, that's kind of what I ended up doing. And at the age of 12, I went to the National Training Center with John Wingfield, and that's kind of where my whole diving career just blossomed, I guess you could say.
Oh, my goodness. That's such a cool story. And, I think it's kind of neat how you brought up the fact that you did start baseball, and maybe that's something that a lot of parents nowadays are moving towards, having a multi-sport kid. Let them try different sports rather than just focusing all on one, because even at a young age you got burnt out. Even at a very young age you got burnt out. So I think that can happen to a lot of kids, and by putting them into multiple sports, not only do you learn different skill sets, but you can kind of find what you're passionate about. And I think that's exactly what happened to you. Now, when you started growing up, what was it like as far as the diving? Did you have diving in high school, or did you have to do it for a club? How does that even work? I want to educate my listeners as well as myself on how diving actually works when you're going through middle school and high school.
Yeah, of course. So actually, in my case, it was a little because at that time, after all that baseball stuff happened, I really went down into focusing on diving. So then my coach told me that I should go on to online school. So I did International Connections Academy, which is kind of like homeschooling, but it's on the computer. So through middle school and high school, I really didn't go to a brick and mortar school at all. And so it gave me more time to train, to stay focused on, my future in the sport, but also, I could stay with my education and go to college, which I actually made to, which I'm really excited about. But so going online school really helped with the flexibility of training, because I could do school when I was in China or Dubai, and it really helped a lot. But it was just kind of different in my situation.
Man, that's actually really interesting. So you did what it took to get not only your education, but able to get your diving in as well. That's awesome that you still value your education as much as you're diving now, and they're kind of working side by side now. You're at the University of Texas. Explain the process now. You're there. You're a freshman. How has that been, diving at the University of Texas?
I'm very honored to be at this school. It's a very great school for education and for athletics as well. Our team is one of the top in the country, which I'm really ecstatic about. It is different going from online to a classroom, being around people and having to express my thoughts on different situations around the world. But it's definitely helping me grow up as a person, being more dedicated to my education as well, and planning my schedule accordingly to what I have meets coming up, or, just trying to stay on top of everything that I have. But it is hectic being an athlete in college. You just have to be ready for that. You don't have the hours like students that, don't do sports do. So you just have to be ready, but I'm sure anyone can do it as long as they have fun and, see with it.
For sure, man. And so that's such a cool transition. So you're going from not even being into a traditional school for so long. Now you're at a major university like the University of Texas. And I kind of want to know, you mentioned your team's one of the top in the country. How did you finish? Or like, how does diving work? Do you look more at individual statistics, or do you look more at a team statistic? How does it kind of work in that sense?
So for Texas, we have the number one ranked men's swim team in the country. So we have, I think, about 3 or 4 Olympic swimmers on our team, not including women. So I have a lot of role models on this team, which is helping me stay motivated with the sport. Because just because it's a different sport doesn't mean I can't look up to them.
For sure, they
have a drive that I want, and that I'm shooting to achieve. But yeah, in college sports, it's individual, but a lot of it is based off of teams. So we have NCAAs coming up next week, and the swimmers can't get the top spot unless divers help them score points. Divers and swimmers work as a team to get points to build up to the top to get NCAA records. And our team has won the NCAA title, I think, 3 years in a row now, and hopefully going to make it 4. So my intention is to help them, reach that goal.
Wow. And let's just I want to know, you can put the humbleness aside. I want to know how you've done. Like, how do you feel you've done so far in your first year at Texas?
I'm really happy with my performance my first year so far. I actually ended up breaking an NCAA record as a freshman on the 10-meter platform, which, I had no expectation of doing that. No one expected that. And for it to happen so early into college was just, amazing. And my coach was ecstatic about it, and my dad was flipping out. So a lot of things were happening so quickly, but, I'm really happy I chose the school.
And you mentioned a 10-meter platform. Okay, so you're crushing it, which is amazing. So I'm stoked for you, and I don't even know like how diving even works that well. I did a little bit of studying and research on it when I was going to interview you, and I'm like, man, like if anyone hasn't jumped off a 10-meter I don't understand how you do it, because I've jumped off of a platform before, and I definitely wasn't diving off it. I just jumped off it, and I'm terrified. How do you do that? Like, what? I mean, this is a stupid question, but like, how do you do such cool tricks off of such a high platform?
Okay, yeah. So actually, I specialize on the 10-meter, but I am definitely afraid of heights. And I actually recently talked to a younger diver, explaining to them why I keep diving 10-meter. And the reason I do it is because I enjoy everyone's reaction, not because I did a good dive, but I like them coming up to me and asking me like questions on diving, or if they need tips if they're a diver themselves. It's a great feeling to have people cheer for you, and for you to be one of those, I guess, lucky few to be specializing on 10-meter and doing these tricks. It really is an honor, because you're three stories up in the air, trying to do 4.5 flips. It's scary stuff. Not many people are going to do it, and I kind of want to stay with that that group and hopefully, put on a good show for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. And do you have different, so you specialize in the 10 meter, but are there different types of diving? I read about a springboard. I read about the platform. Like, is there different types of diving that go into it? Is there anything else you could compete in outside of a 10 meter platform? This may be an ignorant question because I don't know.
Yeah, no, not at all. So yes, there's 3 different events. And there's the 1 meter springboard, which is, the lowest one that bounces, the 3 meter springboard, which is the highest that bounces, and then there's the 10 meter, which is the very top that does not bounce. So it's literally concrete. And those are the 3 events that you compete out of. And then also, naturally everyone knows that you compete individually, so by yourself, but then also there's a synchro event where you compete with someone diving at the exact same time and you get score on synchronization. And, if willingly you can find a partner, you can do mixed synchro as well, which is with a female and a male, which actually I dove with Abby Johnson, who was a silver gold medalist at the Olympics, which, that was a huge honor. And I really hope to get back into mixed synchro if possible.
Wow. And, okay, so I have to ask you this then. So we learned about the different types of diving. We learned what you guys got, specialized in the 10 meter platform. Have you ever, in your training or even in an event, had a major fail where you either back flopped, side flopped, belly flopped? The typical things that people get freaked out about when they're actually jumping off a diving board of any kind. Have you ever had one of those?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've had tons. I think my worst one was off the 10 meter. I was doing a back 3.5 somersault tuck, and I ended up missing my spots and getting lost in midair, and I had no idea where I was, so I ended up kicking. And when I kicked, I looked at my toes, and I noticed I wasn't in the spot it was supposed to be, and I ended up landing. I really could not have landed flatter on the water. I ended up getting out, and I started actually coughing up blood from that, and I was taken to the hospital by the trainers. And it's a very dangerous sport, but I can't help but love it. And I actually ended up competing 2 days later in a competition, just because, it's just one of those things I just can't stop doing.
Dude, okay, that's a cool story because I'm going to tell you right off the bat, when I first looked at divers and stuff like that, I knew that they were talented to be able to be flexible and do all those cool acrobatic tricks in the air. I never thought of it as a tough man sport, quote unquote. No, you've completely changed my perception of diving. That the fact that you were coughing up blood, I can only imagine too. Landing, I can't even, words don't describe it because that is terrifying for me anyways. And the fact that you landed flat, coughing up blood, and then you compete 2 days later, that's insane, man. So that just talks to the durability and the toughness of a diver. And you guys typically aren't typically speaking, you're not the largest in stature. I mean, how big are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, not at all. Yeah, I'm really short. I'm 5'4", 5'5". Yeah, divers aren't meant to be super tall, but there actually are some, like Steele Johnson, who's 6'2", and one of our top in the country. So I'm amazed that he's able to do what he can at his height and with all the muscle he has. So it's very impressive on, who can actually do the sport.
Man, okay, but for you, 5'4", 5'5", coughing up blood, compete 2 days later, that's insane. You guys are tough, man. I want you to walk us through a day, Jordan. Let's walk through a day in diving practice. How long does it take? What do you have to do to prepare? Is there any kind of stretching that you have to do, warm-ups, and then what do you do to practice for diving?
Yeah, so my normal schedule is I have 2 morning practices, which are Tuesday and Thursday, and then every other day of the week except for Sunday, I have a 1 to 3 practice in the afternoon. So for the mornings, our practices are normally at 6:30, that go until 8, I believe. And we end up stretching a little bit. We don't really do dry land, which is mimicking water exercises, but on the land. So we don't really do that in the morning, but we get in and do falling lineups, just drills, easy stuff to just get prepared for the afternoon. And then the afternoon, we stretch again, we get our bodies moving, get our muscles warmed up and ready. Then we get on the dry land and start doing flips and doubles and twists to get ready, acclimated with the spatial awareness that we need to be able to perform our dives in the water. And then we hop in and end up doing, our competitive dives, depending on how much each person can do, which is different with their strength and, stamina that they can take. Our coach just sets up our training accordingly to each person, which is really nice. It helps a lot. So then, we end up just doing our dives and keeping it up for competitions to come in the future.
Crazy, man. And you guys just go. It's just like it's a collegiate athlete, and you got a lot of work to put in. You got to focus there and on your academics. And when it comes to diving, obviously, like in major sports like baseball, basketball, the ones I mentioned, the traditional ones, sometimes they go to, they have collegiate sports, but in basketball, you have the guys that go for a year and then bounce to the NBA or try to play professionally overseas, and they have this goal of going pro in their sport. But when it comes to diving, I want you to explain, like, what's your goals going forward with diving? Can you be a professional diver, or maybe you mentioned the Olympics. What's your goal, and what is it looking like in the future for you?
Yeah. So anyone could be a professional diver if they really wanted to, but that would just end up, I think, breaking the NCAA rule. So then, I don't think you'd be able to get a scholarship for that particular person if they wanted to go to college. But for me personally, I'm probably not going to go professional. I'll just stick with, what I've been doing my entire life. And then I hope to make it to 2020 Tokyo. I think I have a decently good chance on tower. I've been practicing on the 3-meter springboard as well, and that's been getting better. So we'll see how that goes. I can't say for sure, but, I'm going to try my best, and we'll see what happens.
Heck yeah, 2020 Tokyo. You guys need to remember this name, Jordan Windle. You're gonna remember he was here on the Game Time Guru. 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. We're gonna be rooting for you, man. The last question I got for you, Jordan. You mentioned, like, earlier in the show, you talked about China and stuff like that. Dubai, I think you mentioned. But so obviously, like, this journey has taken you to some places. Tokyo is a potential possibility in 2020. Where are some of the greatest places that diving has taken you as far as around the world, and what was your favorite?
Oh gosh, yeah. So like you said, I went to China and Dubai. I've been to Mexico, Canada, Russia twice so far, Germany. Where else have I been? Australia, Malaysia, and honestly, I think Dubai was my favorite. That pool was phenomenal. The people were super nice, and the living situation was awesome. So I really don't have any bad things to say about Dubai. Neither for any of the other places. I think just Dubai overall just had a better outlook for me. I enjoyed diving there for the World Series, which was awesome. So yeah, I think that'd be my pick.
It's so rad. And when you're done with diving, when Jordan Windle is done with diving, what do you want to do?
Oh, goodness. So right now I'm majoring in applied movement science, which is like in the kinesiology field. So hopefully I can be a physical therapist, but if that doesn't work out, I also coached when I was younger, when I was at Duke, and I would love to be a coach and help out younger kids and, build up their sport and share, my experiences and what I've learned throughout the years. So that's kind of what I'm shooting at right now.
Fantastic, man. Well, I appreciate you, Jordan, coming onto the show with me and discussing this, from your background to how you got here and then what you intend on doing. And again, guys, listen up. Jordan Windle, 2020 Olympics. He's shooting for it. Keep an eye on him. 2020 in Tokyo. We hope to see you there, Jordan. And for all the listeners out there, I hope you enjoyed this one and learned something about the sport of diving from one of the best to do it in the country. And this is the Game Time Guru. We'll talk to you next week. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.